Hi, it is Liz from Lohas Canada, and it is May 13th, 2020. And this is a podcast about crafting, about sewing, about knitting, and all the other stuff. So I have quite a bit to share with you on the knitting and sewing front. So I live in Parksville, BC, which is on the west side of Canada on Vancouver Island. So on Monday we're going into phase 2 and opening up more shops and trying to figure that out. So I'm also trying to figure out about the markets, what's happening, what's allowed. So I make eco-friendly products, so I'm trying to revamp of what I am doing within my business, and then I'll also do some farm work. So then it'll be more probably berry picking season. So it's May on the west coast, which is springtime for us. So I was in the garden doing all the planting, the peas, the beans, the zucchini, the squashes, everything like that. So I had a couple days where I was just outside and we had some beautiful weather, like 20 degrees. I was outside doing some gardening. I was picking some calendula, drying it, and then I'll put it into grapeseed oil. I also was making some salves, so I found a recipe that just had the grapeseed oil, coconut oil, and beeswax, and I put that all together. And I was making a cream out of it. So when I was making the salve, I had to continuously stir it when it was cooling off, because when I first did it, the beeswax actually floated to the top, so it had this top hard layer on the top, and then the bottom was really nice and smooth, but it was way too creamy. So I reheated it back up, and then just as it was stirring, I kind of whipped it, and that seemed to have a more of a texture, because the beeswax will make it a little bit more hard compared to the coconut oil. So let's get into some knitting. So especially with knitting for me-made items, I mean, it just takes so much longer to knit a garment than to sew one. So I don't have too many me-made knitted items besides a whole bunch of socks. But we are getting into the spring, so I haven't been wearing socks unless it's been raining out. So because it is May, it's turning into spring, it does come with rain, so I haven't been wearing the wool socks, but the last socks that I fully knit, the 2 pairs, is the Kobasi. So this one has 55% cotton, 16% bamboo, 21% elastic nylon, and 8% silk. So these ones were the ones that I did a couple weeks ago. I finished one off. I did one years ago, and then I finished the other one off. So you're not excited about the nylon content because it is plastic, but it does make it very, very stretchy. And I actually totally do not usually do this, but I put it in the wash by mistake and into the dryer, and I was like, for my handmade stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, but it did shrink a bit, but it's not too bad. I normally just wash them in the sink in my bathroom, but I totally forgot, and they were black, and I think that's why, because usually my wool ones are bright colors and multicolors. But they're amazingly breathable. Like, I feel like they're just regular socks. So that one, I think I would like to find something else without a high percentage of nylon. I understand why the nylon is in there because it is so springy, like they feel like store-bought socks, but I would like to have something else. But for a spring item, that's what I've been wearing quite a bit if I have to wear shoes at all. And the other one is what I'm wearing. This is My First Sweater by Marley Bird. So it is my true first sweater. I haven't really been wearing it because it's been way too warm for this, but I am loving still the material, and I now understand the construction of it. So I'll be looking forward to fall where I could wear it a bit more. So the other item I have been knitting is the skirt by Skinderdeer. And don't want to lose some stitches. And it's a top-down skirt, and this is the wrong side. You can see I have some holes because I'm not the best, but it's a really nice. It's taking me quite some time. But I did have one day where I did a kidney cleanse and just kind of relaxed for the day, and I just knitted. So this is the second ball That one was the Eco Hemp Plus, and then this one is a random sock yarn, so I've been holding them double. I ran out of the first ball of sock yarn, and then I just grabbed from my stash from another one. It's black, it totally matches. So this is my last ball of this Eco Hemp mixture. It's from Cascade Yarns. So I'm just gonna see how far it goes and then figure out what I'm gonna do if it's still too short. I don't really want to just buy one ball because, you know, when you do like the free shipping and everything, you need to have a certain amount, and I am really trying to go through my stash. And if you did not see those last two videos last week, I think it was last week, my sister sent me this garage sale link, and it was a house liquidation, so it was actually through like a company, and they were liquidating a house. My sister sent it to me on Friday morning, and it was just a couple hours before they were opening, and so it was just at this person's house they were liquidating, and they had like 8 totes of yarn and like 8 totes of fabric, so we all did social distancing. There wasn't that many people there, but I went through the yarn stash, I grabbed a whole bunch of it, so that's a completely separate video because there's just so much of it, and I got a whole bunch of it as well to my sister who's starting to weave, where I just do knitting, and then I grabbed a whole bunch of fabric as well. So that's the only project I've been working on for the last 2 weeks. So for the vest, I haven't done anything within the 2 weeks. I have watched some videos of how to put in pockets because that was something I wanted to do. I haven't been able to find a video in English for side pockets, like the slanted pockets, only the up and down pockets. So I am still trying to find an English version. I might have to just watch the other videos. They're not in English, but I might be able to understand it just with the demonstration of the hand. So I'm still looking into that, and then I had a thought that I could maybe do the buttonholes on my sewing machine, so I do have my swatch, so I was going to start playing with that this week, if I can use my sewing machine with my knitted garment, or I just might have to do them by hand and learn how to do them by hand, which is great because that's another skill. So once I figure out those skills, then I'll incorporate it on the vest, but that is something I'm going to have to sit down and do. So I just have been doing this knitting. I haven't done any of the other sock as well. I did purchase an item though to make something. So I did purchase some wool locally though, and it is because I also purchased a pattern, and I saw on Fiber Tales, I was watching her podcast a couple of weeks ago, and then she showed that preview of that beautiful shawl. If you haven't seen it, I personally don't wear shawls, and I never seen a shawl that I was like, oh, I really want that. Like, you know, a lot of times you think of shawls as like old lady-ish, or it's just like a nice flowing garment, which is really nice, but I usually always have like a cardigan or something else, not necessarily a shawl. But when I saw her little preview and then she was gonna have that come out, I was like, oh my gosh, that is beautiful. So this is like the first time I have been motivated to make a shawl. So her pattern isn't written in a beginner friendly way, so that's my only real main concern. She has a Ravelry group going on, so I'm a part of that, and hopefully I can ask questions into there, and I'm gonna have to do a lot of self-learning. So, you know, when you see a pattern, it just has a lot of abbreviations. She does have some YouTube video support, so that made a lot more sense for me, but it is going to be a little bit of a steep learning curve just because it is such a, I would say it's more of like an advanced pattern of where you can read it and it breaks it down. So even with this skirt by Skin Dear, I did have to ask one lady in the knitting group that I'm in, the local knitting group, if she could help me with this pattern, because it's not a difficult pattern, but it's just, there are things that are just implied, and I'm not really picking up on that because it's just so new. So I just had to bounce some things off of her, and then she was like, oh yeah, that's how you do it. And I was like, okay, that's not hard at all, but it's just breaking down those steps. So with that, with the Fiber Tales shawl, it's called Woodlark, and I think it's called Woodlark, and I wanted to do something with some local yarn, but we don't have a centralized place where we can just go and buy local yarn, because we do have sheep here, we do have goats, we have you know, bunnies. Is totally possible. We don't have that system set up in place here. So it's just up to the individual farms and to sell their products. So I was looking online and I found a place actually really close, and they had their own yarn, and it's called Yellow Point Farm. And so they have this beautiful, just natural color. I'll try to look for the content of it because, and then I got this. So this is, the white is going to be my main color, and the black or gray, I guess it's more gray. The gray is going to be my accent color. So, and it is thicker wool than the suggested pattern. So I did a swatch, and they don't have on their website, like the farm's website, they don't have the ply, so I'm guessing it's probably like a worsted. So in the pattern for Fiber Tales, the Woodlark, she uses a fingering. So I did a test swatch on 2.25 millimeter needles, and it actually made gauge. So that is going to be something in the works. I still have to get the needles, so it's going to take me a little while to actually get this pattern going and get it done, but I think it'll be really nice. So for me, that's quite a bit of knitting, but let's chat about some sewing. So the sewing projects have been really keeping me busy for the last couple of weeks. I did get the embroidery machine and have been playing with that. I did try to push the boundaries and see if I could stretch the fabric so tight that it wouldn't need some interfacing or some stabilizer, and I ended up breaking my needle. It did come with more needles, but I really had to, I didn't have any stabilizers, so I had to order some, and that just came in the other week. So I've been still playing with figuring out how to add different colors, different shapes, and just practicing with that as I wait for my stabilizer. So I actually was focusing on some Mean Made clothing. I decided I was going to do a couple of weeks so that I would start to build up my wardrobe and start going through my patterns. Some of them I'm just waiting for some fabric to come in. So the one I started to do is from Helen's Closet, the Winslow culottes. And so culottes are pants that are quite wide, that they look like a skirt. So I, cut out all the pieces. I thought they were quite large. So I did look on like Instagram and YouTube, and the culottes are quite wide. I mean, they're supposed to be, but I wanted them to be somewhat of a manageable width for me. And I was doing it out of a more medium weight linen, where they suggested more of a lightweight linen or something more drapey. So I started to do it out of this gray, nice linen. And I was following a video by Sew Therapy, and she is actually based out of Vancouver, and so she had what she was doing with her culottes. And so I was following her, and she actually didn't have on there that she was using a zipper or anything as a side seam, like a side, no buttons or anything, just an elastic waistband. And I thought, oh great, maybe I can do that. So I made a size 10. My waist is a size 29, and my hips are size 34. So the pattern was a size 10 for me. So I was a little bit worried because when I was cutting out the pattern, the leg pieces are quite huge, and that's just how it is for this pattern. And I was like, no problem, I'll just tailor them in. But I've been having a problem with the fit around my waist, and I think it's probably just my own issue with how maybe I'm at the front, you're supposed to pleat them in, and I don't think I was taking enough of that pleat in, and so I was having quite, like, I don't know, 6 inches on my waist that I was just like, where do I put this fabric in? Because it's not it's not making it smaller. So I watched a bunch of other videos and people haven't had a problem with them, so I'm guessing it's just me, that I wasn't pleating them deep enough so that it would cinch my waist. So I was trying to think, do I take it from the, you know, the crotch area, but then that will tighten it up and kind of make things a little bit wonky. And I got to the point where I was like, maybe I need just to take it in from the seams, from the pockets, from the side. So in the video for Sew Therapy, she suggests doing these like really nice flat laying pockets, and I really do like them. They have a top stitch to them, don't mind all the thread, but they have a top stitch to them, so they lie really super flat in. So I realized I'm gonna have to rip everything out and just start from the beginning again. So that is what I did. I ripped it all out, even though I serged everything, and you know, it's like a full figuring it out. If I think I did it right, like it would have only taken me, like, once all the pattern pieces were cutting out, it'd probably only take me like 4 hours to do. Maybe even less once I got the hang of it. But because these are my first pair of pants, it just took me way longer. And then I just got really frustrated and I couldn't figure out how to cinch in that waist. So what I did is ripped it all out and I tried it again. But I did these like little pleats at the front so I could do some more gathers even further in if I needed to, which I did. So I think the first time what I did is I didn't, in her pieces, she pleats them quite far in. So I think that's where I screwed up. Or maybe I didn't even do the pleating in the back, and maybe that's why there was just so much extra fabric. So the lady I'm following is not like the designer of the pattern, she's just following and doing a sew along. So when I was doing these, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't, they're just so big at the waist. I can get them over my hips, but then what about my waist? Because there's just an extra like 4 inches. So if I put the top part on it, it's just not going to sit flush. So I realized I did need to put in that zipper. I thought maybe I could do something with the side seams, maybe put in some buttons or anything so that I could just have one side button up and it won't be a big deal. But I think I am just going to go ahead and do it with a zipper. So I have to see if I even have a zipper foot, and then I have to see if I have a zipper, because I haven't done a zipper in like 15 years. So that's kind of why I was putting them off, because I thought maybe I could do it without the zipper, and then I can't really do that. So I did that twice this week, so that's why it's taking me so long. So I did take quite a bit off the width. And once I'm done, I'll put in a picture, but it's going to take me a little bit. So I think it also depends on the weight of your fabric, because if this was a lot, say drapier, the extra width of it probably wouldn't have made a difference because it's just going to fold in on itself, but because it's a lot more stiffer material. So I chose a difficult pattern for myself because I don't have all the right tools, and I also chose a difficult fabric. So that is my own doing, but it's a very simple pattern to do. It's just that I should have followed it a lot more closely and probably learned from my mistakes, but that's just how it is. So I probably will be doing those Sew Therapy pockets in the future because they lie so flat, and then you also have that top seam on them. So I think that's really clever and really nice. So my other sewing project was to do the apron, and just not any apron, the apron from that prairie dress, and I wanted to do something up top as well. Alright, I don't know if you could see this fully. So the apron, it's in a muslin, so I was just trying it out. I'll put it on, but it has, so this top part is not part of the pattern. So this is what I just took from an apron that I have and just laid it on the muslin and just kind of gave it some seam allowance and copied that and just kind of measured the thickness of this as well. And the pockets are here. So they're right in front. I also scoofed up, and there's supposed to be some ruffles happening here, so just some cinching along there, but I think I took too much of it off. I originally thought that this was going to be quite huge because it did look quite big, and I was thinking, oh man, this is supposed to go over like a prairie dress, and that's quite large, and I just want to have it for around the house or around when I'm doing some cooking or something. And it does have really nice large pockets, which are quite interesting feature. You normally don't see pockets like this. And then at the back, I just put in a little small button, and it just crisscrosses. So it fits really well. At the bottom, it is supposed to have quite a large ruffle. But right now, I don't have anything at the bottom, and I don't know if I'm going to put in that ruffle, just because, so the bottom is supposed to be gathered as well as at the waist, and then it's supposed to be put it down. So I think I could probably have done it more at the waist because it had quite a bit of extra fabric. But the bottom, I tried multiple times for the bottom. I don't know if the pieces are too small because I wanted to have that gather so it actually looked nice and full, but it wasn't sitting, like it just wasn't lining up properly. Like if I actually had that really nice full gather, then it's just going to be way too short for the bottom. So I don't know if maybe I'm doing it wrong or maybe I should pleat it or something. So I also don't know if I want it. It had like 10 inches. I actually have used that piece for some other projects now, but it had about 10 inches, so it went all the way down to the floor. So I don't know if it would have been very flattering for what I wanted. And I did this out of muslin because what I wanted to do was figure out the pattern and also kind of figure out how to create a pattern, and then also take all these pieces. I did everything in cotton, so take all these pieces and then one day, maybe near the end of the summer, get some indigo and then dye all this cotton stuff that's made out of muslin. That's kind of been my testers. So then I'll have some neat indigo colors of clothing that I've already done. So the reason I started doing this apron is because my sister wanted one of those Japanese style aprons, and so I was just kind of playing with this pattern and figuring out the size of the skirt and then the crosses over. I think with the Japanese ones they're quite a lot more loose because this one is more form-fitting. I can also put buttons on the back as well, but I think they're a lot thicker at the back, so just a lot of experimenting. But I also could just buy the pattern for the apron as well, but I just wanted to do some experimenting on that. So I have a couple more sewing items. It was Mother's Day last week, or this last weekend, just a couple days ago. It was Mother's Day just a couple days ago. But I started on this project a couple days before Mother's Day because I knew I wanted to play around with it. So what I thought I wanted to do is, my mom is Dutch, so we do have a Dutch store just down the street from here, and I wanted to get a bunch of Dutch items and make some bags to put the Dutch items in and then give it to her. So I wanted to make some more of these bags. This one I boxed incorrectly. I did like a 3-inch box, so it made it very opposite to what it was. So this is boxy this way, but my seams are this way. So if I just did like an inch box, it would have been completely fine. But yeah, it's just muslin on top, and then this is just a canvas, a blue canvas, and a nice handle. And so I did some half bags for her, so they just came up to there, and I'll show a picture. And what I also wanted to do is, I have a Cricut, and so I wanted to do some vinyl on there. So I just made myself a little knitting bag, and it is quite large, I guess, and quite in your face. So next time I'll probably do more, maybe more some feminine designs or something. This is, you know, a stop sign shape, and so it's very, very in your face, but it is nice and glittery. So the 2 bags I made for my mom, one was just muslin on top, canvas on the bottom, and then the other one was linen, pink linen on top, and then the blue canvas on the bottom. What I was thinking with knitting bags, and I do want to make some knitting bags eventually, is that this little handle here, I can obviously make it bigger, but what I was thinking is what might be really nice is to have this as a snap instead of a full closed handle. So if I was, I don't know, someone's house and they just had like a shelf next to me, I could just open up the snap and then snap it on there and just kind of start knitting away, rather than, I mean, I could have it on the next to me too, but sometimes it's nice just to have it on the shelf. I also made a couple of these smaller sizes a couple months ago, and I couldn't find where I put the pattern, like the pattern I written down, so I had to redo it. But the other ones, I actually have them on a bar and they're holding some cookies and chocolates and stuff. Or even, this would be great even just in your closet as a snap, and you just had like your underwear or your, you know, your socks in there. So that was my idea for the snap. So let's chat about the mannequin. This, I keep on forgetting, a yukata? Is that what it is? I don't know the exact terminology for it. I bought it in Japan and it was $5, and I have 2 of them, and so I've been trying to mend things and repurpose things to go back into my wardrobe, so I'm just not carrying them around forever. It was just more of like a novelty thing with a couple friends. We were all trying them on and we're just like, whatever, $5. And so they were really pretty. It had really puffy out sleeves, like really big ones, and it just smelled so musty though. And then I was at this one house and he put it on the delicate cycle and it just fell apart. So I just packed them away, and then now I've pulled them out and I'm going to repurpose them. So they were sewn together with like really loose stitching. So you know how when you baste something, it was basically made with that, but not basting thread. It was just like normal thread, but really, really large stitches. So of course it was in the washing machine, it just kind of like fell apart in pieces. So I have been hand stitching this down, so it's been taking me quite some while because I'm not great at hand stitching, but I've been learning some new techniques. But like this whole thing to hand stitch it down, you know, took me like an hour. So I've been just tackling kind of one panel and one piece at a time, and it's been a very slow fashion for me because I am doing really, really small stitches and trying to learn some other techniques. So I haven't decided what I'm going to be doing with the sleeves yet, if I'm gonna maybe crop them off a bit more so it becomes more like a long vest. I'm not too sure. So that's been kind of the work in progress of the mending. So it's one of my sister's birthdays coming up, and she showed me a post on Instagram for this linen top, and it's not my style at all, but it is a cute and really basic and easy top to do, so I thought I'd do that for her birthday. The picture had a lot lighter fabric, so I was thinking I can also redo it. Another one in a different color, or a lighter color, and I think in the picture it's more like a lightweight linen, but I probably have to then double it up just because, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily wear a bra with this, or maybe you would, I don't know. But it's basically just an elastic at the top and elastic at the back. And this mannequin I'm going to have to reshape one day because it's actually quite large. It's larger than me, and then my sister is smaller than me. So that's how that went, and yeah, if she wants it in another color, I can also make it in another color. It's a pretty basic, simple linen top. I think it'd be really cute. When I was making this though, I was thinking, man, if you just didn't have the elastic and kind of just draped it further down, it might just be a really cute top that way. And I don't know, because a lot of the times when you have linen tops, they need to be like open back or something that, you can get out of, like buttons or anything, just because you are so confined into it because there is no stretch in linen or very minimal stretch. So this actually works out perfect because you can get this in and on and it has lots of room. So that might be something I might play with a little bit later, just because I have this, I know the body dimensions. My other thought was what I could do is have this at the top and then have some sort of, this is just a regular spaghetti strap that goes straight back, but you could do a cross at the back and that would hold it into place and then have some sort of open back as well. So it was interesting because it gave me a lot of design ideas of what I could do just with some basic linen. My last sewing project is I made some more menstrual pads. I haven't yet put the snaps on, but I have done this. These ones are the thicker ones, and so that's why the stitching is really wonky. The sides are pulling over. So in these I have done a lot more thicker layers than the first ones, because the first ones were great, but they're more for lightweight days. So I would say lightweight to medium days, where these ones I want to try to do for like a medium to heavy flow. So I did 3 different ones, and with that, because they were a lot thicker, I'm going to have to adjust the pattern just so that it goes further up here and around here, just because my stitching will be too wonky and it's just pulling too much of the fabric just because it's thicker. And this one is the one that I felted. So I got some wool roving and I felted it. It took me quite some time to felt it, like to get it actually compact and small. And then I had to go around the edges and felt the edges down even more, just so that I'd be able to sew it. But now I'm looking at it and I don't think I even sewed the edges where I did it. So I don't know if that made any difference, but I sewed it down. This one is a lot more stiffer, you can see. With these other ones, they have different like hemp and bamboo in them. So I will start using those and figuring out if they work better for the heavy to medium days. So, and also like it took me a couple, probably like 2 hours to felt this wool one. So, and I didn't want to do some wet felting, which might have been a lot easier. Well, it would have been a lot easier, but I don't know if it's going to save me a lot of time, and I don't know, because I want this to be nice and compact so that it absorbs as much as possible. So I don't know if wet felting would be doing that, because it's more like the fibers are together and you're irritating it with the water. So that might be also something to try, is to try to do a wet felting one to see if it's faster and easier and more absorbent. But I'm going to see how these go and then see if I need to adjust the pattern again, just depending on the thickness. And my next installation of these will be like the smaller size. So I would say this is like a medium size pad, but it'd be nice to have the smaller sizes as well for the lighter days. And then just as a mental thing as well, if I have a smaller size pad, then I'm like, oh, it's for light days, where I have these size pads in my first batch, but they're more of a lightweight to medium pad. So I just think psychologically, if they're smaller, then I'd be like, oh, it's a lightweight one, whereas if I grab this and I'm like expecting it to be a heavy, medium to heavy weight, it can absorb. So my very last sewing thing that I'm going to start working on in the next couple weeks, and it'll carry on for, I'm sure, for the next couple months, is the Freedom Corset. So this one is Freedom Corset 1407. Whoop. And so it's got 2 corsets down at the bottom, and one is an over bust and then one is an under bust. And Pinup Girls, and I got it from bramakers.com, and I think they're in Ontario. So they have, you know, bra making supplies, but they actually have the I think this is the only one, the corset pattern. They also had the eyelets for the back, they had ribbon, they had, I forgot what this is called, the bust channel. And so I'm going to be starting to do that. in the next couple of weeks. I have been watching a lot of Foundations reveals. They have a lot of the replays from the last years of calls that they've done with all the mentors and different people that they've had to talk about different things. So it's been really nice to listen to that while I'm sewing, and it just kind of feels like it gives me more inspiration because it's like people are talking about the things that I'm doing, so then I'm like, okay, it's more aligned than if I'm just listening to some random podcast and it doesn't really give me motivation to do it. So I have been picking up a lot of tips on there of how people make the corsets, and they have a lot of different articles. I still need to keep on diving into those articles because I've just been watching a lot of the replays so far. But I know when I get into specific things like Pentax and stuff, I'll be reading more of the articles. So I think it's going to make a lot more sense when I do a corset, and then when I go back to watch some of those videos on the replays, that is going to like make a lot more sense, just because right now I don't have an understanding of how all the panels go together. So I think once I have that first draft and that kind of confusion, then I'll be able to keep on making a couple other mock-ups before I do a finished garment. This is like a base pattern for me, so I would like to learn how this is done and then start to draft my own, so then I can figure out how to mesh the two things that I really like. What do I like from this pattern? What do I like about my own stuff? And then what do I like maybe from other patterns that I can incorporate? So that's going to be like a year-long journey. So in one of the videos, Barbara, one of the mentors, was talking about on Foundations Revealed, they were talking about what she makes her drafts up with, and that was like duck cotton canvas. So I do have some cotton canvas, so I'm going to start doing those mock-ups, and then I have some extra cotton that I can use for the fashion fabric. And yeah, I'll just keep on going from there and kind of refining and tweaking it. So it's nice that I'm kind of keeping like almost like a video diary, because a lot of times I sit down and I'm like, what have I even accomplished this week, this day and stuff. So it's kind of nice just to go down memory lane and figure out what I've been doing and what I've accomplished, and actually seeing the result all in one place rather than just everything spread out and everything's dispersed. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.